I am the director of the Sustainable Energy Program at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and we deal with reducing the environmental footprint of the energy sector, and we try to work to having the energy that's needed for sustainable development. So it's quite a complex program. There are a number of ways that the buildings are extremely important. As I'm working on energy, the first one is thinking in terms of buildings being responsible for 40% of CO2 emissions by virtue of the energy services that they use. And if you could put in place these framework guidelines that we've developed, you'd be able to reduce energy consumption in buildings to the point where they could be serviced by low or no carbon energy sources. That would be probably the most significant benefit that we get from an energy perspective. So the UN involvement in this is making sure that lessons learned in one place are shared with other places, and thereby accelerating the needed transformation.
It's a little family reunion, these conferences. That's what's so cool about it.
It
and
does.
every year the family gets bigger, and that's what's so cool.
People get pissed off at me when I say we're not going to do this one single family home at a time, because people are like, "What the hell are you talking about? That's my business model." But I don't think we are.
That's just one aspect of the scale. It's important. That work's important, but you've got to look at everything else too. We're building a lot of buildings that aren't single-family houses.
Yeah.
Look at what Lois Orlando just presented. That was amazing. The Cornell building broke the high-rise barrier, and now what did she show? Like at least half a dozen other high-rise projects they now have on the boards that are passive house. I mean, that's if there's a breakthrough. If that's not a breakthrough, what is?
People that are doing this large-scale stuff, I wouldn't necessarily take it on by yourself. The point is that there's enough work going on out there right now in pretty much every state, not every state, but in a lot of states, that if you want to be a certified passive house designer, you can find a job. Go work for these people.
Just take the plunge. That would be my biggest recommendation. Whatever scale you're at, whether it's a single family or bigger, it's a little bit scary to jump in, but once you do, you find that within a couple of years you're answering other people's questions because you've been through it.
In the north it's going really strong. Where we live in Navarra, all the social housing that are going to be made in the next years have to be passive house certified.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and that's a huge advance. That in part is thanks that we already have one building finished and certified. The 29 Soto is the first passive house residential building in Spain, and this has been very helpful for achieving all these other things. Yeah, of course, it's not only residential. Actually, we are working in a sports center, in a health center, and there are many not so big social centers that are going to be certified. But because of the government is asking for that in the competition, in the architectural competition, so the implication of the government in this sense, it's so important.
Right.
It's the perfect moment for passive house in Spain.
There's so many organizations that are represented here at the conference across the country and Canada, and that it would be sort of absurd to put all of their names on one T-shirt, though I wanted to give a nod to each one of them. This is actually an organizational chart of North American passive house organizations in North America. So it's this is the Passive House Institute, and then it's going to the International Passive House Alliance, and then which is then connected to our three primary passive house organizations in the States: New York, Canada, and California, which are then affiliated with the network, and then which is then connects all the smaller organizations together.
So I've been working on the ice boxes for almost a year now. We've been taking it from a concept that started in Darmstadt, and then there was another icebox challenge that happened in Vienna, and then in Seattle and Vancouver. So now we've built one for Oakland, and here we are today. They're finally done. The Icebox Challenge is, I guess, a passive house construction challenging the code in California, which is the energy code. So we have a box that has a high degree of insulation. It's fully airtight. We built our code box to the legitimate prescriptive code, and still we have our passive house box winning. So we bought blocks of 25 pounds of ice sizes, and then we put 250 pounds of ice in each box. So yeah, there's been a lot of passersby that are looking in the windows, taking pictures. We're going through our brochures very quickly, which is good because we've got a lot of great messages in the brochures about the benefits of passive house.
Being a certifier is one of the greatest learning opportunities, which sounds kind of maybe counterintuitive because you think, okay, as a certifier, you're really reviewing what others are doing and seeing, okay, are they meeting the standard, right? Are they meeting all the requirements? But actually you get exposed to all sorts of different construction techniques, approaches, solutions. So it's a fabulous learning opportunity. And what I find is being a combination of a trainer, a certifier, and a consultant is that they all feed each other, right? So the stuff I'm learning as a certifier can feed back in through the consulting, but it can also feed it through into the training, and what that allows is to actually spread the knowledge much more widely. And I think there's been great development in Europe, obviously in Germany and Austria, there's a lot of developments there. What I'm starting to see in North America is where when an idea really catches, it really starts to take off. And so where I find in Europe, having lived there, it's generally more conservative progress, right? Slow and steady, but progress naturally. In North America, things can take a bit longer to catch on, but once they do, it can really start to ramp up, and that's where we're starting to see large-scale passive house projects, really tall, really big buildings coming into the development. I think there's those two hotbeds for passive house, New York and Vancouver. There's certainly a lot of training going on, but it actually extends beyond that, where there's just a lot of collaboration, right? So you've got initiatives initiatives that Michael Ingui are leading, where they have a lot of tradespersons sharing of information off projects, right? And there's actually a requirement when they're doing projects to actually share that information, right? And so that's really accelerating the learning. And despite them being competitors, they're actually they're collaborating. And we also see this with the North American Certifier Circle, of which my company is part of. And so that's an organization of certifiers operating in North America. And we're naturally competitors, but we actually meet regularly to discuss issues and make sure we're all on the same page, that we can share experience and collaborate on initiatives as well.
Training is our main focus, but beyond that, we're trying to obviously boost the passive house community and get the word out and educate. And by doing that, we have sort of a Passive House 101. Passive House Lunch and Learns for architects and other designer firms that want to learn more about it and potentially, take the course or just enter into our community. We work a lot with affiliates in each of the regions.
Great. Any fun facts?
Any fun facts? Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any fun facts.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not prepared for
Passive
that.
House is no fun at all.
No, Passive House is super fun.
We didn't really have a planned approach to adopting Passive House. It was purely something that we adopted as a means of addressing fuel poverty. And it was really through doing a test project that it opened our eyes up in terms of the full implications and flexibilities of the standard and how we could really maximise it to its full potential. And we learned so much from other people, the consultants that worked with us to deliver those first Passive House buildings. they shared the knowledge, and I guess the outcomes of that knowledge were so compelling that it just produced such a strong message that there was no way that we couldn't continue building that way. So you can create, almost an exemplar city. But I guess some of the frustrations is trying to replicate that on a much bigger scale outside the region. So part of our role as a local government body is to, again, share that learning and share that experience, but invite people to come and touch and feel and experience Passive House as a true entity, as opposed to something that is building physics, something that's very theoretical. So I see our role very much as being an open invitation for people to come and experience, and more importantly, meet with those people that live in our homes, our Passive House homes, or use our Passive House buildings. And I think there's nothing more compelling than their stories than perhaps all the theory and the practice behind it.
And what are your future plans now?
For us, it's upscaling. It's making Passive House mainstream within our city. And more ambitiously, I would say, probably see if we can get some influence more on a national level throughout the UK. My closing remarks at the last policy session was just get on and do it. There'll always be challenges, there'll always be frustrations, there'll always be ways in which you are tested. But until you get going, you can't really trial out those different methods, you can't really improve, you just got to get on and do it. Pick a few professional people that are Passive House qualified to help you on that journey, and you'll get the fundamentals right, and you'll just grow and improve time on.
Nächste Passivhaus-Konferenz international ist in München, und da wollen wir auch wieder ganz viele Nordamerikaner sehen. Das macht so viel Spaß, zusammenzuarbeiten.
Some of the high-performance building movements and science kind of spreads across the country, particularly this Passive House building science. It's growing exponentially. It helps people understand what it is, and if they don't understand, we're glad to always share our opinion of high performance and what that means. The most effective high performance systems can be the simplest, and really using very basic principles, using the energy that comes from the sun, building smart. You don't need a lot of gadgets, you don't need a lot of technology, you just have to build high quality and build smart. I think sometimes high performance, frankly, is almost more synonymous with simplicity.
When you're building a Passive House certified building, the numbers matter, and if you have reliable numbers on a reliable high efficiency, that's going to have a huge impact.
And tell me a little bit, because I had the same experience, in the PHP, what the effect is between a certified and non-certified unit, and what does that do to your energy model?
Well, in honesty, if you want to really go deep, if it's not certified, you're guessing. Taking another standard, whether it be AHRI for commercial units or HVI measurements for the residential units, and then doing a correction has been shown it's not a reliable number. So you're going to guess. And if your guess is wrong, it can have a very big impact on the actual what's modeled as to what actually occurs.
So what does that mean when you have a certified PHI component and you go into another market?
It sets us apart in a big way. And to a point, you've got people that recognize Passive House as that very high standard, and that's very helpful. In other times, we have to do some education and explain what that is, but once they understand that, that's a very high bar to get over to get Passive House certified. We've been doing some retrofits of existing buildings, taking packaged rooftop units off the roof, replacing them with a dedicated outdoor air system, which is high performance heat recovery ventilation, and in most cases a VRF heat pump system. And we've been reducing the building's HVAC EUI by 50% or better.
So wooden nails.
Yes. Various applications, laminated timber application, furniture, siding, wood siding, or strip siding for residential homes, commercial, anywhere that you can use a nail and don't want to use a dowel or a fastener.
Let me pull focus. Oh, nice. So Elron, where are you coming from?
Where am I coming from? I'm coming from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, from the South Pacific.
So what's going on? Why do they need passive house in New Zealand? That's a warm climate, man.
They need passive house everywhere because it's not just about the how mild the climate is. It's about the quality of the buildings and the health and the use of energy.
And they have some health issues in New Zealand?
Yeah, in New Zealand, most of our housing stock, most of it is damp and mouldy. It gets condensation, built to a very poor standard. So houses built in New Zealand over 100 years ago are not too different to houses that have been built in modern times in terms of quality. And so we really need to improve the quality, and passive house helps with that. The kind of key thing for me, and why I've been invited in a way, is about being able to talk about passive house in a way that communicates to people outside of the kind of technical community. So it's like, how do we communicate? Like, passive house is like deeply, deeply important for the world and for climate change and for the quality of our buildings. But how do we stop talking to each other and start talking to other people so that we can actually have it being implemented by more than a small, very dedicated niche of people? Where the people in the passive house community are doing fantastic work, but it needs to expand, and we need to be able to scale up, and that's really critical for the future of our for our species on this planet.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a big topic. Yeah.
It's human to be attracted to something that works well. I think that's the main attraction of it. Because passive house is the ultimate. We got it right. Yes, it saves wonderful amount of money, and yes, it's very good for stopping global warming and saving the planet. I don't think the military adventures in the Middle East are because of a shortage of falafels or fighting for women's rights.
Yep.
The army seems to go a lot of times to places with oil in them. So I think war is the worst thing that can happen, and if we can do a little bit to avoid it, that to me is worth getting out of bed in the morning. People understand, don't do incremental. People understand, go to the point we need to get to.
Yeah.
People say go to the extreme. It's not an extreme. There's nothing extreme about doing passive house. You're just doing it right. You're getting the loads down to where it's trivial. Passive house is where a person can go to find the people who are honest, the people who are doing the good work, and the people who will steer them away from most of the bad mistakes.
Brilliant. Good.